questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you guys are watching the live replay, if you guys are interested in getting your own natal chart reading, astrology reading, progress natal chart reading, synastry reading, the information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. You guys can go on my website underneath the readings tab, select which reading you guys would like, and we can go from there. Hey everyone, welcome to the chat. How are you guys doing? Hey Mary, hey Concerned. How are you guys doing? You guys are awesome. What's new? What's the 411? What would you guys like to know about today? I'm going to be answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Thanks you guys. Thank you so much for the kind words. You guys are awesome. Me too, Concerned. Every time I look at my own natal chart, I learn something new. So it's really fascinating. I heard from someone, I don't know if this is true or not true. I just heard from somebody else that you have up to 40,000 pieces of information in your natal chart. So that's pretty fascinating. Hey everyone. Hey Lorraine. How are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Hey Mary, let's start with your question. How are you doing? I'm doing well. So you said thoughts on Scorpio in the 11th house, Sagittarius rising, Aquarius sun. You know what's interesting for Scorpio in the 11th house? That's actually like a good energy in terms of like, let's say you launch a project or you want to start your own channel or you want to, let's say write a book or whatever it is. Okay. So the people that you're going to be marketing toward are going to be Scorpio types of people. Okay. That's going to be the audience that you're going to be marketing towards. So it's interesting because then the audience is either going to love you or not like you. Okay. There's not really going to be an in between. And then also you could kind of take that to your advantage. Like let's say you wanted to write a book. Well, then probably writing something that is Scorpio-esque is going to appeal to that 11th house audience. Do you know what I mean? So let's say it's a true crime novel or like a mystery or like a murder mystery type of thing. Or even let's say if it's about the occult or astrology, anything in that Scorpio realm, that's the audience that's going to be interested in your work. Okay, so there's that. And what's really cool about this energy also is like the audience either loves you or doesn't like you, which is interesting on its own because usually the people who do like your work are going to be really loyal, let's say to whatever it is that you're doing. So you'll see a lot of the time those people who have like people arguing for them in the comments, they probably have Scorpio in the 11th house or something of this sort taking place because it's like, again, that loyalty runs deep. So it's up to you what you want to do with that energy. If you look at it in terms of friendships, your friendships are probably going to be deep because it's Scorpio. You might hide your groups of friends with that Scorpio in the 11th house. You might be part of like, let's say secret groups or secret societies, like these types of things, okay, with that Scorpio in the 11th house. So it's a lot. There's a lot to say. Hey everyone, how you guys doing? Hey Esperanza. Hey It's Success Girl. Hey Sue Loves Astrology. How are you guys doing? Hey JW. Hey Selena. Hey Dream Synopsis. How are you all doing? Hey Chiana. How are you guys all doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal chart. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. I'm just going to go in the order here. You said, in my opinion, what's the difference between Scorpio rising and Scorpio sun? I mean, there is definitely a difference because Scorpio sun is born during Scorpio season. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the intensity of like that whole Scorpionic energy when you have a Scorpio sun. Scorpio rising, here's the thing, depends what else is going on in the natal chart because sometimes you don't really feel the Scorpio rising. And then also you always want to get to the root of the energy to see how is that Scorpio rising operating. So usually that's done through ancient rulership. So you would see what sign is Mars in and you kind of keep going until you kind of get to the root of the energy to see how is the Scorpio rising operating. A lot of the time you'll see Scorpio rising interested in things like, let's say acting, modeling, because they have the eyes, for example, the Scorpio rising, but it depends to see what else is going on in the natal chart. You might not be able to tell always. Like Scorpio rising, yes, can be intimidating, but they don't always, it depends what type of Scorpio rising it is. Like what's the root of the energy? Because I've met some Scorpio risings where I was like, hold on, like you're a Scorpio rising. Like I did not get that vibe at all. So depends what else is going on in the chart. Is that the only Scorpio placement? And yes, a lot of the time you will see Scorpio risings interested in some sort of career field is basically what that is, because a lot of the time, by career field, I mean creative field, okay? Because a lot of the time, Scorpio rising, if they don't have any interceptions taking place, their fourth house will be, their fourth house is going to be Aquarius, and then their 10th house is going to be Leo. So they usually want to be doing something like acting or on a stage or something of the sort, okay? The Scorpio rising energy. That's if they don't have any interceptions in the Placidus tropical system. Hey everyone, you're welcome. How are you guys doing? Yeah, it depends. You want to see what's going on. Like, you want to see what sign is Mars in. Like, you want to keep going to the root of the energy to see how is that Scorpio rising operating, okay? So, for example, let's say you have a Scorpio rising, and then let's say Mars, because you're going to do it based off of the ancient rulership, okay? So then you want to see what sign is Mars in, okay? And then whatever sign you have that in there, okay? Let's say you have Mars in Libra, okay? Then you go to Venus, and then you want to see what sign is Venus in, and you keep doing that until you get to the root of the energy, okay? You said you're Pluto in the first house and you're the sweetest person. Exactly. Sometimes you don't feel it. Sometimes you don't feel it within the person, that Scorpio rising energy. It depends what else is going on in the natal chart. Like Pluto in the first house, yes, they can be intimidating, but it depends. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes there's other things going on in the chart where it like balances the energy. Like I met someone who was a Scorpio rising, but they had more like Gemini undertones to their energy. So you wouldn't have guessed when you met them at all that they were a Scorpio rising. So it depends. It depends how is that Scorpio rising operating. Hey, Scorpio rising gang. Oh my gosh. Hey, spiritual awakening Scorpio. How are you guys doing? You said how to interpret Pisces moon trine Scorpio Mars. Pisces moon trine Scorpio Mars. I mean, that's going to help your moon a little bit, because that Scorpio Mars is that drive. It's that endless drive is basically what that is. And then the Pisces moon is going to go off into the ethers. So it'll help basically that moon from going too far into the crown chakra. That's Scorpio Mars trining the moon basically. So let's say if you have a goal in mind or an ambition like that Scorpio Mars, because it's trining the moon, as long as you're emotionally invested in it, you'll be able to bring it through, okay? Because that Scorpio Mars is going to push toward that, is basically what that is. Otherwise, the Pisces moon on its own is just like off in the ethers and the dreaming and the high vibes is basically what that is, okay? So it's nice. It's nice to have that trine taking place. Okay, I'm just going to go back up. Oh, that's awesome that you love everyone unconditionally. That is so great. I'm just going to go back up to see who I may have missed up here. How are you guys doing? What's new? I think we just had a new moon. Okay, Chiana, you said thoughts about moon conjunct Pluto and synastry. Both are in signs of Scorpio as well. Yeah, that's intense. Because one of you guys probably has the moon conjunct Pluto in their own charts, I'm guessing, with the moon conjunct Pluto. And then also that's going to be, because it's generational and Pluto's generational, so the moon person probably has that with a lot of people within their generation. And especially because their moon in Scorpio, that individual is going to be looking for depth. So all relationships are going to be deep, basically is what that is. With the Plutonian aspects and synastry and Scorpio energy and all of this, it always depends how evolved are the two people, is basically what that is, okay? Because if the two people are not evolved, all the shadows of Scorpio are going to come up to the surface in this relationship. Now, in synastry, a lot of the time they say the outer planet person is triggering the inner planet person more. But at the end of the day, let's say the outer planet person is a little bit more evolved, or let's say the inner planet person is a little bit more evolved, they could actually be triggering the outer planet person, because energy is energy at the end of the day. So it just depends how is it being expressed in this dynamic, right? So, you know, that's basically what's going on here. So one or both of the people are going to have all their stuff to come to the surface, okay? So anything to do with like jealousy, manipulation, control, possessiveness, obsession, stalking if it goes into the extreme, okay? Because the thing is, with the moon conjunct Pluto, okay, well, the thing is, if they're both in Scorpio, the moon in Scorpio depends how deeply has this person met themselves. You know what I mean? If they haven't met themselves deeply, then the Pluto person comes through and they might feel like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I can express this to someone. But the thing is, it's generational. So maybe they have already had this with a lot of people within their generation as well. Hey, Clarice, how are you doing? Hey, RJ Betas. Oh my gosh, thank you guys for the kind words. I'm so happy you guys are here. Thank you for being a part of the community, for your likes, your shares, and your subscribes. If you guys want your own reading, so natal chart reading, synastry reading, progressed natal chart reading, the information for all of that is in the description box below. You guys can send me an email. We'll go from there. Hey, Caramel, how are you doing? How are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. You said, do I know anything about, are you talking about Fama? I'm not sure what that is. I'm going to screenshot that. I've never heard about that before. You said you heard it's about fame. I've never heard about that before. You said, what's the significance of being born under a Virgo full moon as a Pisces rising and a Pisces sun? So your moon is in Virgo. Is that what is going on there? I mean, it'll help you ground the rest of that energy. Pisces struggles down here. So you guys have to look at the earth plane as the earth signs, okay? So the things that prosper down here and the signs that do are Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus. So when you have a Virgo moon, it's actually more psychic than the other energy, which is Pisces, like the oppositional energy, because they actually act on their like psychic visions kind of thing. Like they don't kind of go off into the ethers. Like Pisces goes off, they kind of get lost in everything, okay? Because Pisces is very vast. So it's nice to have that Virgo energy because it's going to ground everything for you. Yeah, April, I'm going to have to look into that. I haven't heard of that one before. So I'll look into that and then see what that's all about. You said Scorpio sun and stellium, Capricorn rising and Libra moon. You said definitely feel it all. Yeah, absolutely. Capricorn rising too. Oh my gosh, that's all intense. And you have Scorpio sun and stellium. I mean, with all that energy in there, you're definitely a hustler at heart. You said, what's my take on continuously seeing repetitive numbers, all numbers many times a day, everywhere? Honestly, I kind of assign meanings to certain numbers myself. Like there's the meanings, you can look it up online what it means. But like for me, like I have my own number. That's like my number. So when I see it, to me, it just signifies that I'm meant to be in that place at that time. So that's like my significance for that number. And then I have other numbers that sometimes connect me to certain people. So you're going to have to kind of get in tune and see what are you thinking of in that exact moment when you see that number. And like when you see it again, it's going to confirm probably whatever else you were thinking of. Do you know what I mean? So like, let's say it's a person that it reminds you of. Maybe the next time you're thinking of something about that person and you happen to pass by that number, it's confirming what you were thinking about that person. I hope that makes sense. So that's kind of how like the numbers work with me. But of course, like you have the meanings of all the numbers if you were to look up online and see what they mean. A lot of these, thank you. Oh my gosh, you guys are so awesome. Thank you for the kind words. You guys are awesome in the chat. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. But yes, so it's this. It's really this with the numbers. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You said Dream Synopsis. I like that name. You said you're Libra rising in Vedic, Scorpio rising in Western, Sun in the 12th house in a whole sign, but empty and Placidus. What should you think? Yeah, it's hard because there's so many systems to look at. Honestly, I've looked at all of them for myself and I just kind of take what resonates in each system and kind of leave behind what does not. You kind of have to see what like resonates most in terms of transits for you, if that makes sense. You can kind of base it off the Saturn, in my opinion, okay? Hey Diana, how are you doing? So that's kind of what I base it off of. You can look at the IC, the midheaven, the descendant, and then the descendant IC and the rising, okay? The ascendant. So like that particular axis can also tell you a lot about everything because it's going to tell you about the self. It's going to tell you about your people like that you are attracted to or are attracted to you. It's going to tell you about your home, which is the 4th house. Like the 4th house is going to tell you a lot, okay? And then you have your 10th house, which is kind of the career and all these things. So you can look at that to see what resonates most in which system. And then you can also look at the Saturn. That's what I would base everything off of, is the Saturn. In my own opinion, that's just my own opinion, because I find that we're operated by Saturn cycles down here. So you want to see which system aligns most with like previous things that have taken place in the earlier part of your life based on the Saturn cycle that you were in during that period of time, okay? So then you'll know which system resonates the most. But other than that, you can kind of take the information, like if you do readings, you can see like where it resonates most for you out of all those systems. Venus conjunct Mars and midheaven. Oh, that's nice. So April, you're probably very charismatic. Hey Pluto, how are you doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So Venus conjunct Mars and it's conjuncting the midheaven. In terms of your career, first of all, you're going to be very ambitious because you have Mars in there, and then Venus conjunct Mars makes you attractive. It makes you very charismatic. So that's good in terms of like, you know, whatever it is you're trying to do in terms of your work, like, you know, making the connections, meeting the people, being funny, being sociable, these types of things, okay? And then the Venus in there, like the midheaven, which is your career, is going to have like Venusian undertones to it, okay? So you could be interested in PR, marketing. Let's say you start like your own PR business with the Mars in there as well, for example. Or it could be something like Venus to me, like when I see like Venus personified, to me kind of feels like in terms of career. Have you guys ever watched Emily in Paris and the job that she does? Like to me, that's very like Libra midheaven vibes, Libra in the 10th house, the Venus midheaven aspect. Like she pretty much does like the social media. She does all the events. She goes to all those events. Like it's very fashionable. It's like Paris, like all these things. Like that's to me, that energy. That's just kind of how it feels like. So it could be this, but it could also be law, for example, with Venus in there as well, you know, like being a lawyer or working in the law field or something of that sort. So it could be any of these things, really. Okay, I'm going to go up. I'll get to you guys at the bottom in just a second. Yeah, Esperanza, I'd have to look to see how your Scorpio rising is operating if you're interested. So I'd have to look at your chart to see like what is the energy, like what's the root of the energy. How are you guys doing? RJ, you said you are a Libra rising with Venus square Saturn opposing Uranus. Tips to navigate this. Oh, that's a little bit of a struggle. It's squaring Saturn and it's opposing Uranus because that's like you're looking for long-term serious relationships, but you also need freedom in your relationships. I mean, here's the thing. If you have a certain level of freedom and space in your relationship, it could potentially be a long-term relationship. It's just going to be something that's a little bit unconventional. I understand as a Libra rising, like relationships are probably really important to you, but it's like because of the Venus opposing Uranus, you need to be able to maintain the sense of self in your relationships, like the individuality. So it's like these types of relationships could be relationships where it's like, let's say you are in a long distance relationship and like, let's say this long distance relationship lasts like, let's say 10, 15 years because you guys only meet up when you're, let's say, traveling, you know? So it's things like this, where it's like a type of relationship that is unconventional, out of the norm. It lasts for a long period of time with the Saturn in there. The thing is, Saturn might want traditional, but the thing is the Uranus energy is always going to want unconventional, is going to want change. And the thing is, I feel like if the energy gets too stagnant in these relationships, like the Uranus energy could bring through chaos, like in the shadow, to kind of like spice things up when it's in the shadow, like drama and chaos. So it's just like all about knowing the self, basically, at the end of the day. I'm so glad that that resonated. Yeah, exactly. That's basically what it is. So you need some sort of relationship that is something like this. That would be like the best case scenario for you, you know, like that Venus Uranus. So like the Venus Uranus aspects, you guys, like these people can literally see like their best friends like once a year and they're still going to be best friends. You know what I mean? It's that type of energy where it's like they're so busy and doing their own thing and in their own world, and their individuality is so important for them that like they can have a lot of different friends, you know, and they can still be best friends, but they don't have to see these people all the time. And also I find that in this era that we're living in with the internet and like, you know, being able to contact people, you know, through phones and so on and so forth, like a lot of the time these energies, it just like helps them not see these people in person longer. I hope that makes sense. So is this. You said born with Saturn in the first house. It progressed to the 12th house. You said you're a 29-degree Libra sun. Oh, you're a Libra sun. You can feel yourself becoming a Scorpio. You will become one in February, and then you will be Scorpio sun and rising. Oh, yes. Yes, you're going to go into like the depths. That's the thing. Going out of Libra into Scorpio is like you kind of take all the people that you've gathered and you are now basically analyzing them is basically what that is. Venus, I mean it in the sense of like Libra energy. Libra relates to law and justice and beauty and fashion and all the things. So that's where that was coming from. You said, what is 20 degrees Leo vertex? Are you talking about vertex? Are you talking about vertex? Because you wrote vortex. Can you tell me what house it's in too? Hey, love frequently. You said, hi there, just curious about Scorpio North Node in the 6th house with Neptune also in there. Okay, so in terms of your life purpose, you're going in the direction of Scorpio, which is transformation and something to do with healing as well, like being of service, health, healing, and being of service. Make sure you guys like the live. Obviously, if you so choose to, double tap on the screen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But it's this, the Neptune is going to blur it for you. And then that means your South Node would be in Taurus. It would be in the 12th house. It could have been like a very crown chakra activity, like past life for you, where it's like, there could have been a lot of escapism in the previous lifetime for you. Maybe you learned a lot of like metaphysical truths and something of this sort, okay, with the 12th house in there. Because the thing is, like, the way I see North Node, South Node is like, if you mastered the South Node, you wouldn't be reincarnating again. That's just how I see it. Thanks you guys for the likes. You guys are so awesome. Get the video out there so you can find more astrology friends. So it's this, okay, with the Scorpio North Node and then even like the South Node too. So you want to take the South Node and you want to see how can you apply the South Node in a North Node type of way, okay? So it's like you're coming back maybe with certain knowledge, let's say that's spiritual knowledge, but now because it's the 6th house, you might be applying it, let's say more like locally, for example, like in a more tangible, grounded way, for example, and then through that, you're gonna help people transform, okay? So it can be a lot of different things. Like this energy, when I see Scorpio in the 6th house, it's like a healer energy to me. So it can be, let's say like a personal trainer, helping people transform their bodies, for example, something of the sort, okay? Where people go through a transformation and through that journey, you're helping them heal basically because it's the 6th house and you're being of service. It could be a book. Let's say you write a book, for example, you overcome something and your book, it depends on the rest of the energies in your chart to see really, you know, where the gifts lie. But it could be something like this. Like, let's say you write a book and like your book could be, you know, helping people. Like, for example, Matthew Perry, I'm pretty sure he was North Node in Scorpio, and he wrote his book about how he had the addiction and all these types of things. Like that's very North Node in Scorpio, and probably his book helped other people, let's say, okay, in that realm. So just like a random example, but it could be anything really with change and transformation. Hey everyone, how you guys doing? You're welcome. Oh, you guys are amazing too. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You said you've had a best friend for over 54 years and you hardly see one another. Exactly. That's how, like, I don't know what to tell you guys, because I see all of that as healthy relationships in my own opinion. And I see that like where the collective is heading, basically, like where there is that space between people, you're not overly enmeshed, right, with the people. So yeah, like the Uranus Venus aspects, like they can have long-term friendships, because like Uranus is the sign or like the planet of friendships, right? The energy of friendship. So it's like Venus Uranus aspects can be in these relationships for a longer period of time, because first of all, there's a strong friendship element there, and then there's also that space, right, that you give the other person and that you are also seeking in that dynamic. So it's this basically, okay? So these energies could struggle basically with like maybe water energies that are underdeveloped, that is, okay? The water energies that like constantly need someone there, or you know, constantly need to be with the person, constantly need to be doing something. So these types of things, okay? Hey, how you guys doing? I'm just going back up. I'll get you guys at the bottom. Scorpio, can you tell me what house you have your vertex in? You said it's in Leo, but what house is it in? If you are still in the room, let me know. I'm just going to go back up here and see who I may have missed. You said, can you predict romantic relationships through transits? If so, what transits do you notice happening in, or other aspects in the chart? Probably Venus transits could do something with relationships, or something transiting your 7th house, maybe. Something of the sort. I don't do predictive readings though. So it's this. It depends on your own natal chart too, and to see what's going on with your Venus and what's going on with your 7th house, and is Saturn involved as well. You said your wife is a Scorpio sun, moon, and rising. No confusion there. Oh my goodness, that is full-blown Scorpio energy. Sun, moon, and rising. Nice. What house is it in? Concerned? If you're still in the room, I'm curious to know. You said, let's see, I did that one. Oh my gosh, so many Scorpio risings. Hey, how you guys doing? You said, what's 5 degrees, Leo, vertex, in the 9th house? Okay, so for vertex, you guys, it's a fated event, okay? And the way that I see this fated event is that it puts you on your path, okay? So, and I always say to people, take it with a grain of salt, because sometimes people hear fated event and then they're like sitting in their room, they're like, oh my gosh, what's this event? And they're like freaking out, you know what I mean? So there's no need to put that type of energy on it. And that's also one of the reasons I don't do predictive readings, because a lot of people like try to hold on to predictions for dear life, and then like it's a lot of anxiety, do you know what I mean, that people feel with predictions and these types of things. Anyways, so with vertex, take it with a grain of salt, but the vibe here is the house is the person or people you experience the fated event through, and then the sign is going to be the vibe of the event, okay? So the 9th house can literally be, let's say, a spiritual teacher, let's say it's a yoga instructor, let's say it's a motivational speaker, let's say it is, you know, some religious figure, for example, with the 9th house in there. Let's say it's a professor, you know, at a university. You experience a Leo type of event through this person, okay? So, for example, let's say you go to some sort of like networking event, and there's a motivational speaker there, and the motivational speaker now inspires you to maybe, you know, take an improv class, or take an acting class, or, you know, take a speaking class, for example, where you now get to be on the stage, okay? So that's kind of how the energy works, okay, with vertex in Leo in the 9th house. That's kind of like the overall vibe and the idea. So now this puts you on your path, because maybe this is something you always wanted to do, and now you got inspired to do it, and something of the sort, okay? So you guys can see how it can manifest many different ways, this event, but that's the overall idea with vertex. Yeah, exactly. Did I say? Yeah, no, it's true. People hold on to predictions for dear life. They're like sitting in their rooms and like waiting. And it's like the future is technically not. It's okay. So with predictions, it's really interesting. Oh, you said a 12th house sun moon. Wow, that's intense. Wow, that is really, really intense. So here's the thing, okay? It's hard to explain to people who don't understand the metaphysical world how predictions work, okay? Because all predictions are contingent upon a person's frequency, okay? So if someone is, let's say, even in a lower vibration, or like they always do the same thing, or they have the same actions, or they're stuck in like a cycle of like, you know, same patterns, repeated patterns, these types of things, it's easier to hook into their energy and make a prediction for that person, because they're going like this, they're linear. Do you know what I mean? But that same person could wake up tomorrow, have an epiphany, and be like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this, you know, this entire time, this pattern, and I'm going to stop it now. And like, you know, let's say you made a prediction, you know, that something was going to happen in 2 years for that person. Well, now because they've had this epiphany, they're not on that path anymore, because they're changing that pattern. Do you know what I mean? So it's like that could go from 2 years to 2 weeks, for example, right? or 2 days. So this is kind of how it works with prediction. So that's why it's challenging, especially these days, to hook into timelines specifically, because the timelines are like this, okay? They are shifting a lot because of the fact that, again, you know, we are in the age of information. So because people are having more access to information, people are going through an awakening and like a rapid acceleration and growth. So it's like people can literally wake up tomorrow and do something that completely changes or alters their path, right? And that's how you can change your timeline, for example. So it's like, yes, you know, if people are in a linear energy, it's easier to predict. And, you know, if they're not doing anything to change, yes, you will see where they are going. But they can wake up tomorrow, or it can be brought to their awareness, right? This pattern that they're doing or trend or whatever, and then they can be on a completely different timeline. So that's kind of how it works with predictions. But a lot of people don't really understand. They don't understand the metaphysical world. So it's like, then they take the prediction and then they hold on to it. And then it's like, you could be pushing certain things away, and you could be pushing that thing away as well. Okay. So that's kind of how it works in a nutshell. You said, why does the universe want Capricorn risings to have hard lives? It's because it's ruled by Saturn. And it's like, I think that everyone has challenges at different points in their lives. I just find that Capricorn energy just learns this earth plane before everybody else, is basically what that is. Because this earth plane is ruled by Saturn, in my own opinion. I always say this to you guys. To me, it feels very Saturnian. Down here, it's very restrictive. It's restricted by time. We have karma. We have, you know, like all the things that thrive down here are like discipline and structure and these types of things, okay? So that's very Saturnian. So it's like, it kind of seems like to me, Capricorns, like they kind of go through the challenges early on in life. It's kind of like that diamond being built under pressure energetically, okay? And then they come out on top because they learn what it's like down here. They're actually in reality, is basically what that is, okay? Versus, let's say, people who are maybe more Piscean or 12th house, they kind of go through the whole fairy tale, delusional, illusion-like land, right? And then their sobering moment is also another form of like the reality breaking, but it's challenging. It's more challenging for them. Do you know what I mean? So like all of the signs go through different challenges, but I find that Capricorn energy is the most realistic, basically, okay, down here on this earth plane. So they can thrive is really, really what that is, because that's just how it is down here. It's like the more you try to do something, the energy is going to knock you down. That's just what Saturn does, because Saturn wants to see how bad you want something. Are you willing to put in the work toward that thing? So Capricorn energy kind of just like gets a grasp of that, like at an early age, is really, really what that is. So that's kind of how I see it. You said, wow, Scorpio, exactly, same here, and also Scorpio stellium. And then you said, as Capricorn rising, you agree. Exactly. As time, well, I find that as time goes on, it gets easier for the energy because they stop resisting that Saturnian energy, is basically what that is. Everyone, like, again, because I find that the earth plane is ruled by Saturn, everyone is going through a Saturn transit at all time. You know what I mean? Like at every point in time, you are in a Saturn transit. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone focuses on like the Saturn return, which like, okay, yes, that could be like, you know, the path to adulthood, but you're going through squares, you're going through other like, you know, transits. So you're always in a Saturn transit. Do you know what I mean? So that's how I came to that conclusion, that this earth plane is operated by Saturn. So everyone is dealing with Saturn in one way, shape, or form. It's just like Capricorn energy is just like it's Saturn already, right? So you're kind of like used to that energy, is kind of how I see it. You said you guys occasionally talk about a shift in timeline. Does that simply mean a change in a person's future? Yeah, exactly. That's what the shift in the timeline is, basically. It's like, you'll see, like, let's say every day. Okay, so here's one, okay? Because I was intentionally trying to jump timelines, okay? I listened to a meditation, and then I'm trying to jump timelines. So interestingly enough, like, I would always, so basically every time you do a timeline, like, jump, or like, let's say something changes in your timeline, like something within your routine will change, for example, okay? So I'll give you guys, like, and it's so subtle, you might not notice, right? Until later that, like, it, like, shifted, right? So for example, I would always walk by this parking lot and I noticed there were these two cars that had literally the same license plate, except they were like one letter, or it was one number off. So I was like, okay, they're probably like spouses or family or something of that sort. They probably park here and then they go to work or whatever, okay? And they would always be there beside each other. And like, I started noticing that they would park in the same spot. So I was like thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, I feel like these people come early in the morning, right? And then they're here all day and then they pick up their car later, right? So anyways, so recently when I was walking by that parking lot, I noticed that they like don't come anymore. So I was like, oh my goodness, like I literally feel like I jumped a timeline. Like I was already feeling it, but that was just like confirmation for me, because I was like, oh my gosh, these people don't park here anymore. Do you know what I mean? So it's like so subtle, you know what I mean? It's something like that that's so subtle in like your routine, where it's like a small thing that just like isn't there anymore, right? Or it's like, let's say, you know, every day you go on like a 10-minute walk. Well, maybe, you know, you now slowly started like changing your routine or whatever. It's something subtle that happens, and it's usually like without you thinking of it though, okay? So that's kind of like a timeline jump or like shift. You said, obviously there are many factors that affect we humans, but are there energies in a chart that indicate, yeah, a person is more likely to become a bully? Absolutely. Mars, Pluto aspects, that person could have been abused and then become the abuser, aka bully. So they could have been bullied when they were young, and then they could become the bully when they're older. So yes, Mars, Pluto can definitely indicate like a bully type of energy. The thing is, if it's in someone's chart, they are prone to bullying. But the thing is also, they can be the ones who are the bully. Do you know what I mean? Because the energy is there. That's the thing with these energies. It's in the chart. So it's like, because it's in the chart, you know, it's either being expressed through you or around you. You're welcome. Okay, I'm going back up to see who I may have missed. I'll come back down in just a second. You said Jupiter and Scorpio, you love all the Scorpio stuff. I mean, April, that's up to you, what you want to do in terms of which direction you want to take the energy in. You said Jupiter in Pisces, but it's retrograde in the 4th house. Yeah, so when it comes to money, you might struggle a little bit with that retrograde energy. Retrograde kind of feels like a resistance energy. That's how it feels like to me. It's like an uphill battle, okay? So it's like, for example, you have Jupiter in Pisces, which is awesome, right? Because Jupiter used to be ruled by Pisces, so that's one of the best placements for Jupiter, but then it's like now it's retrograde. So it's like when it comes to, let's say, making money, when it comes to Pisces types of things, let's say it's film, let's say it's theater, let's say it's the metaphysical world, let's say it's astrology, let's say it is music, okay, you might have to work extra hard because Jupiter is retrograde. Now, if you want to take advantage of the energy, let's say you launch a project or want to launch a project, well, the best time to launch it will probably be when the transit is Jupiter retrograde. Do you know what I mean? Because you're used to the energy. So for other people that don't have Jupiter retrograde in their chart, you know, that would be a time of like rest and reflection, but you're used to the energy. Do you know what I mean? Obviously you have the free will to do what you want, but that's kind of how you can work with those energies, is basically what that is. You have to work harder to basically bring through the money and the abundance. And the 4th house in there, you know, the money could be affected by the home or like belief systems connected to the home, okay, if you're not getting the money coming through in the way that you want it to come through. Also, you can make money through, let's say, you know, like real estate or interior design, or let's say photography, like home photography or staging, these types of things, okay, or anything to do with homes, like home insurance, these types of things, okay, with that 4th house. Even like maybe a family business or something of that sort, actually. You said, how do I interpret part of fortune, North Node, and Pluto in the 12th house? Pluto is 1.5 degrees from the ascendant. And then you said part of fortune is 5 degrees from Pluto. Okay, so you said you have part of fortune, North Node, and Pluto all in the 12th house. Basically, first of all, that's a lot of shadow work with the Pluto in the 12th house. A lot of the time, your subconscious or like your unconscious is being carried over from a previous lifetime. But at the same time, that's a lot of change and transformation. So you're probably like a natural psychologist with that energy in there. And then also the North Node being in there as well. It's like part of your life purpose is you go through change and you go through transformation, and then you're helping others change and transform, is basically what that is. And then part of fortune, you know, 5 degrees from Pluto, you can literally make money through Plutonian types of things, okay? It's basically what that is. So anything that deals with sex, death, rebirth, drawing finances, taxes, and the occult. Let's say you're a financial advisor. Let's say you are into astrology. Let's say you are, you know, like into the occult or like writing about these types of things, whatever, right? You'd have to look at the rest of the chart. Even psychology with the Pluto in the 12th house, like that could be literally a psychologist, for example. Pluto in the 12th house after you kind of clear your own stuff. So that's basically what that is with all the energy in there. You said, oh my gosh, you had an enormous and mean, you had an enormous and then you mean enormous timeline jump 9 years ago. You completely changed overnight, 56 years of it. See, wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, see, that's exactly what it is. You can literally jump timelines. You can either willingly do it. Like if you guys want to manipulate the energy, you can literally switch up something tomorrow, okay? So it's like, let's say you guys are always in the same routine. Well, let's say you switch, you know, like let's say you go the same way home every day, or let's say you leave the same day or whatever. Let's say you always go to the same Pilates class or gym class, whatever, right? Let's say you're always in this routine. To switch up the vibes and to shake like up the vibes and to bring in new energies, you can switch up the routine for yourself. So you can also kind of manipulate the energy in that way to try to jump a timeline as well, is basically what that is. But a lot of the time, timeline jumping is connected to you clear something, or you have some sort of epiphany, or you change something. It could be even like you change something in your diet. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be something so like revolutionary, but it could be like, let's say you wake up tomorrow and you're like, I don't like this job anymore. I'm going to quit it. And whatever happens, happens, you know? That would be literally you timeline jumping. You know what I mean? You're welcome. You said someone will come into your mind and then you'll think to look up their chart. Typically, you know at least their sun sign, and it usually ends up being the day was their day of death so many years ago. And then you said, or it will be one day before or after. That happens so many times. What does this mean? Is this like a celebrity or like a public figure? I noticed I pick up on a lot of crossover celebrities like energy, like around their death dates or their birth dates. My theory for that is because of the fact that like, you know, the ones who are closer in the timeline, for example, like the ones who still maybe have family around, or maybe fans, or people who are still kind of pulling their energy closer to the earth plane. So around their birthday or their death day, like a lot of people are thinking of their energy, so they're bringing them closer, let's say, to the earth plane. So you're probably like medium, like in this way, right, where you're hooking into the energy because it's being pulled closer to the earth plane. That's my theory, at least. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's interesting because that happens to me too, okay? When I start picking up on people and then I look them up and then I'm like, okay, it's closer to their birthday or their death date. And that's probably, again, because people around them, especially if they're closer in the timeline. Hey, Michaela, I'm well. How are you? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. But yeah, so that's my theory on that. Is because, and a lot of the time, there's another thing that happens too. And it's interesting because I started that second channel where I was doing celebrity natal charts, and I'm still thinking about that channel because the thing is like, I hook into someone's energy, and like now recently I've been having like the most random person come through, and I'm like, maybe I should do like their natal chart reading. But anyways, it's like I start seeing their name around a lot, or people start mentioning them a lot. So there's always something that happens where like they're being pulled in closer to the Earth's atmosphere. Like for example, I had Tupac, his energy come through like around his death date, which was actually September 13th, which was actually Friday the 13th, which was so interesting, right? So that was this year in September, and I had his energy that kept popping up, and it was interesting because I did the same thing that you did. I went to go check, just like look him up, and I'm like, okay, what's his chart or whatever, and then I saw that that was his death date, and then it was so interesting because literally a few days after that, all of the information started coming out about, I don't know if you guys saw the light flicker, but anyways, confirmation, all the information started coming out from the other dude. I'm trying to like speak between the lines, you know, the other one with like all the things, like with all of his like situations and people and rings and all the things that they're all involved in. Okay, so his connection was there, which I thought was really interesting that basically took place. So you're probably like picking up on it, right? Because it's like they're usually pulling these people's energies closer to the earth plane. Like you'll see, let's say you might start picking up on someone, like let's say they want to write like a memoir about them, or they want to write, let's say like, you know, some kind of movie, or let's say it's going to be like a revamp, or like they pull out some song, let's say it's a musician, and they're like being like, oh yeah, this song was like buried in the records, and now, you know, we're going to be playing this song that like nobody knew about before, but like, you know, we're releasing it now. You know what I mean? Like things like that. So you probably pick up on it if you're a little bit more energetically sensitive. Yeah, it's so interesting. I didn't, with the license plates, it was just recently I started noticing that. I never paid attention to that before. So it's really, really interesting. You said, oh, interesting. The bully types had Mars and Capricorn. You said definitely a big boss of energy. I'm glad that you're doing well, Michaela. Oh, good. I'm glad that you're learning a lot love frequently. Thank you. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to comment below. Okay, Michaela, you said you have Neptune in the 10th house in Aquarius at 17 degrees. Does that mean anything? Yes. So Neptune in the 10th house basically blurs your career. So you don't necessarily see what you want to do in terms of your career clearly, okay? So you might want to do everything. You might want to do this. You might want to do, you know, music. You might want to do tarot. You might want to do film. Like you want to do everything. But if you try to do everything, you get nothing done, okay? So these energies are the energies that, you know, you have to always look at the oppositional energy, which is Virgo. So Virgo is all about perfecting a craft, right? So in order to thrive down here, especially when you have Neptune in the 10th, you want to pick one thing that you really like and stick to that thing, okay? And then maybe later you can branch off. So it's like, let's say it's music, we'll stick to just music, okay? That's Neptune in the 10th house. Now, Neptune in Aquarius, this is going to be the subset of your generation. So Neptune in Aquarius, basically, This is the subset of the generation that doesn't like see the area of like innovation clearly, for example. Okay, so it's you and the other people within your generation that like dream of like, you know, the future can be like this, we can help the collective in this way, you know, this type of innovation, that type of innovation. So with Neptune energy, you always want to see how can you ground that. Okay, so you and the subset of your generation, let's say you guys come up with new inventions and new ideas, you always want to see how can I ground this into this physical plane and into the physical reality. Otherwise you're just thinking about it and you're dreaming about it all the time. Thank you so much for the super chat. You said you heard that was a fame placement and you do want to do everything, and that's so true. Yeah, maybe the 17 degrees could be connected to that, but the thing is you want to see what else is going on in the rest of your natal chart. And again, you know, focus on doing what you love and becoming good at what you love to do, because then the accolades will just naturally come. That's pretty much the advice that I have. Okay, so there's a different vibration between chasing fame, you know, and kind of going into it for ego-driven reasons, because then that's just kind of like empty energetically, you know what I mean? You're always chasing more, right? Versus becoming very good at something and then the recognition comes to you, right? Because you're good at that thing. So those are the things that thrive down here, okay? The things that thrive down here are when you become very good at one thing, okay? Because that's Virgo. So the Virgo energy is perfecting a craft. Then you have Capricorn, which is the discipline and the structure that it takes to perfect that craft, maybe the connections, maybe meeting the people, these types of things. And then we have Taurus down here, which is like the material gains and the wealth and all these types of things, okay? That's basically what it is with all of this. So yes, mastering whatever you're, exactly, you don't want to operate out of the ego, because the thing is, the ego is, here's the thing, there's like a difference between doing something for an ego-driven reason and then doing it for like a heart-centered reason. Like the vibration is very different, because the ego is always like wanting more. It always feels like things aren't enough. It's kind of like this like bottomless pit energetically, right? When you're chasing something for an ego-driven reason, and it won't be fulfilling ultimately at the end of the day, because you'll see when you get something, if you chase that thing for an ego-driven reason, it's not going to be fulfilling. If you did it for a heart-centered reason and, you know, you were being kind of intuitively led, right, then it will be emotionally fulfilling. So that's kind of how you can differentiate between the two things. You said, is that where the veil is between us and the other side? Is that why we can see, feel while we are still here? That's a good question. I've never thought about where the veil is. It's an energetic overlay that's basically taking place around this earth plane. But yeah, it's somewhere. I just don't know where exactly. You said you do daydream way too much, but it actually helps you manifest because you have a 12th house stellium. Exactly. So you want to ground. When you have 12th house energy, you want to figure out how can you ground the dreams and the visions into this earth plane. So you have a strong third eye chakra, right? When you have 12th house energy in your chart, it just sometimes it can just be all about daydreaming. And sometimes that energy, because everything in the higher realms happens very quickly and fast, that energy can get discouraged because things aren't happening fast down here. But that's just how it is down here. We are restricted by Saturn down here, unfortunately, okay? For this like period of time that we're in, at least, okay? It's very restricting energetically down here. So like the 12th house person feels very restricted energetically because of the Saturnian nature of this earth plane, okay? It's just restrictive. So it's just a matter of taking your dreams and applying them and being patient to see it through until the end and giving it time, okay? With that 12th house energy. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the crown chakra and the daydreaming. And then it also can go into escapism, where it's like you're trying to escape the earth plane by constantly dreaming and daydreaming and being out of body all the time, right? So you can kind of look at it as like a double-edged sword, this energy. But the thing is, to master it, you just want to see how can you basically ground these dreams and these visions to have them basically come to fruition. You said progress moon from Scorpio into Sag. So for the next 2 years, because the thing is the moon progresses every 2 years, so you can kind of see like what's going to emotionally fulfill you for these next 2 years, because it's going out of Scorpio into Sag. You'll be coming out of the depths, right? So you probably were doing a lot of shadow work when it was in Scorpio, okay? And then you're going into Sagittarius, and then when it's in Sagittarius, well, it's like now it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. It's freedom. You might be wanting to travel. You might be integrating all of these things that maybe you thought of, and this. Okay, so that's that progression. It's nice to go out of Scorpio into Sag because it's like a breath of fresh air energetically, right? If you have transmuted the Scorpio energy, right? Because the thing is, there's also a shadow Sagittarius that hasn't transmuted Scorpio, and then that can also go into some sort of darkness as well. That I find that a lot of people don't think about or talk about with Sagittarius energy, because Sag is connected to fun and adventure and optimism. But the thing is, for Sag energy, you all, okay, in general, Sag energy, like as an energy, if you look at how Sag is operating, the 12th house of Sagittarius as an energy, this is regardless of where you guys have this as a placement, because you can apply this to any placement, okay? It's the inception thing that I've spoken about. Let's say I have a video on this actually for the Scorpio energy, okay? So you go into the sign to see how is the sign operating, okay? So the 12th house of Sag is actually Scorpio, okay? So Sag actually has a lot to process, and it's interesting to me because I was thinking about this, because they're mutable, it can be really interesting to deal with that unprocessed Scorpio 12th house energy within the Sagittarius, right? Because it's like the mutable nature is like here, there, everywhere, right? And then it's like they have the 12th house in Scorpio, so there's a lot of things in the unconscious that need to be processed, basically, okay? So that's why sometimes they can be mutable, right? It could be hard for them to focus on one thing, right? But it's like once you process that, then you're really good at, let's say, reading people and all these types of things. So that's Sagittarius. And another thing to think about with Sag energy too, what I've been recently thinking about too, with them in the northern hemisphere, okay, Sag is actually during the darkest time of the year, right? That's when the day is the shortest, right? So it's interesting to me that like Scorpio is connected with darkness and then Sag is connected to optimism, but like Sag comes right after Scorpio and they're actually during the darkest time of the year. Do you know what I mean? Because then we have the winter equinox and then the day starts to get longer as we move out of those energies. So the shadow of Sagittarius is really shadowy, okay? Is basically what that is, kind of where I'm getting at with that energy. So it's something that a lot of people don't really think about. Yeah, there was a new moon, yeah, in Sagittarius, exactly. You said North Node in Sagittarius, and then you said, and you have the Gemini in the 4th house. Yeah, so in terms of activating your, okay, you said North Node in Sag, and then it's in your 10th house, and then is your midheaven also in Sagittarius? Can you let me know? Because in terms of activating basically the North Node for you, you'd have to go into the 4th house Gemini, right? Which is, you know, the energy could have been very scattered in the home energetically. It could have been kind of like a revolving door. Like these energies might have to be integrated in order for the North Node to be activated. Like the home and the upbringing and whatever took place in there could be pulling you, let's say, out of the life purpose, for example. Okay, right? Exactly. Like they can be like trickster energy. Let's see. You said if one was not living in a capitalistic society, would I still recommend grounding the 12th house? You feel like you could do the opposite and develop dream or spiritual abilities even more? Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, it depends. What are you trying to achieve, right? If you are in a situation and you're in a circumstance where you have maybe financial freedom and you don't have any sort of goal that is trying to achieve something, right? Then you can go into the crown chakra. That's the way that I see it. Do you know what I mean with the 12th house? Because the 12th house could be in the crown chakra all day long, is basically what that is, okay? But at the end of the day, the earth plane is the way that it is for now, and it is capitalistic for now. Do you know what I mean? And that's just the way that the structure is down here. So it's like, if you are in a situation and you're in a circumstance where you do have the financial freedom to go off into the crown chakra and go off into the 12th house, then you're fine. You know what I mean? You're good to go, right? But if you're not in that case, right, and maybe you are trying to achieve something and you're trying to bring through some sort of goal, and maybe you are trying to, you know, ground something down here, maybe you're trying to achieve, let's say, some sort of, you know, whatever it is, goal, ambition in this life, right? And maybe you aren't in the case where you're financially free and you're trying to bring through money and finances, right? And you do need money and finances to live. Well, in that case, you have to focus on grounding, right? Because it's like, for example, like I traveled a lot, so I met a lot of like, you know, those like hippie types of people who aren't really doing anything with their lives, but they're probably like, let's say, people who have either mastered the material plane or they already come from money, for example, where they are in the crown chakra all day and everything is rainbows and butterflies. Do you know what I mean? So like, I bet you anything, those people are 12th house people, right? And it's like, if you have the ability to be in that energy, that's great. Do you know what I mean? Like, awesome. Go off, you go off into the crown chakra, and then you're able to dabble into different things. But then it's like, there's just like the reality of things that yes, it's a capitalistic society and most people still need to work for their money. So it's like being that type of person, like having the 12th house is a struggle. Do you know what I mean? Because you spend a lot of time trying to escape. So it's like, then you're going to try to balance and juggle, let's say, making money with trying to go into the crown chakra. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like going into the creativity, into the dream world, into the dreaming, into the dreamland. That's what it all comes down to. It depends, because everyone has a different financial situation is really, really what that is. So that's the thing with the 12th house. It struggles if it needs to make money, for example, because a lot of the time you'll see also, let's say, for example, homeless people. I bet you also that a lot of them are 12th house people, okay? They were kind of like probably... Also, you know, we have the trauma aspect of things, yes, and then the addiction aspect of things, but those are all 12th house things, right? I'm sure if we were to sit down and do a study, this is just my own theory, okay, that we will see that a lot of them are 12th house people, but a lot of them were probably like, well, you know, F the system, let me leave the system, but then they're also homeless. So then it's just like, it's a whole conversation, do you know what I mean? Because it's like, there's just so much going on, and then they're probably also energetically sensitive, and it's like the 12th house is also prone to drugs and also prone to just like the collective unconscious and merging and all these types of things. So it's like, that could be another, let's say, expression of the 12th house as well, right? So it's this. So it's up to the person, right? Because sometimes people incarnate into homes and situations where, again, they're financially set, right? And then they can go into the spiritual realms, you know what I mean? Or maybe they've achieved that for themselves. You'll see that sometimes people master the material plane and they've achieved a certain amount of wealth, for example, and they are good financially, and then they go off into the crown. You'll see that as well, because the crown and the root chakra are connected. From my own opinion, that's just the way that I see it, right? So it's like you either have people who are in the root, right? And then when you're too much in the root and you're in survival, that's why like a lot of the collective hasn't been able to have a spiritual awakening. And even right now, like they're putting a lot of energetic pressure on a lot of the collective financially, right? And like when people are in survival mode, they can't go into the crown chakra, they can't have a spiritual awakening. It's like all connected at the end of the day, right? And then you have the people, let's say the root chakra is set, they might go off into the crown. But then you also have the people who go off into the crown and then they're in avoidance of the material plane. So it's like there's just so much going on energetically. You said, you're welcome. You said, that's so crazy. You were homeless at an extremely young age and now you're traveling a lot in the present day. Exactly. And you're a 12th house person, right, Michaela? Well, I'm glad to hear that you've overcome that. You said you have also battled addictions too, and you're not having any of those habits anymore. Congratulations. That is awesome for you because you were able to get out of that energy. You said, what are the top 3 most rarest placements from my observations? Interesting. I haven't observed too much in terms of rare. Let's see what I do know from what I've heard. I heard that Aquarius is really, really rare, but then I encounter a lot of Aquarius people, but also I have a lot of Uranus aspects in my chart. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the vibe like attracts the tribe. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I find a lot of the time like the energy that's in my chart, the people are attracted to my energy, right? Because there's something going on with the synastry there. You know what I mean? Where it's like there's something going on in the energy field. So that's what I've heard. I've heard that Aquarius, energy is rare. I've heard that apparently Aries risings are rare, but at the same time, I've seen a lot of Aries rising charts. So it's just like, I don't know. I haven't really observed because I've seen like a wide range of natal charts. So it's hard to say from my own personal observations. You said, is it difficult having a Mars in Pisces as a man? I'm going to say yes. It's so interesting. I was just saying this to someone yesterday. So if you are someone who identifies as a man or you operate dominantly out of the masculine energy and you have Mars in Pisces, and also if you have Mars in Cancer, you struggle down here on this earth plane, because everything, even what I just said in terms of the 12th house, having Mars in Pisces makes you more of a dreamer. Do you know what I mean? So it depends. What are you trying to do? It's like if you're trying to achieve a goal and you're trying to bring something through down here on this earth plane, having a Mars in Pisces makes you escape the body more, right? So you're going to have to work harder to actually bring certain things through because you go more into the feminine. Like it'll bless you. Like all these energies, you will get blessed with creativity. You're going to be blessed with the psychic gifts and abilities. You're going to be blessed with, let's say, like musically talented. Like, yes, you will be blessed in those areas, but it's also important to understand the world that we're living in. Those things don't necessarily get rewarded, or they don't necessarily have the best financial opportunities, right? Like you have like maybe one person who succeeds in these areas, but it's like you have to work harder to bring money through if you're working in any of these realms. That's kind of what I'm like connecting all of this back to, right? So when you have a Mars in Pisces, like you're gifted in all of these things, right? You could be musically gifted, you could have a lot of like dreams, a lot of visions, but it's like operating down here on this earth plane could be a struggle because you leave your body, right? So it's like being in a structure could be a struggle for you, even for like a 12th house person, right? Or even Neptunian aspect, right? These people struggle down here because they are opposite to the energy of this earth plane, at least over here in the Western countries, right? I could only speak on, let's say, like the Western capitalistic world, right? It's that way. So it just is what it is. So like, let's say you're trying to bring something through as a Mars in Pisces, you're gonna have to work harder, right? Because you'll see when you're trying to focus on something, you could get distracted, right? Or you might have to, let's say, create deadlines for yourself. Like, let's say you are an artist, you might have to, let's say, create that structure for yourself and your own energy fields. Thank you guys so much for the likes. So that's just how it is down here. That's just how it is. So it's a matter of learning the game and how to play the game if you're trying to bring something through, right? And seeing where your gifts lie and how can you balance out the energy is basically what it is. Because that energy, Mars in Pisces, will make you more energetically sensitive. Also, you're going to be porous energetically, okay? When I say porous, you're going to be absorbing a lot of things around you. So it's like even that can then make you tired, right? Because then you're tired because you're picking up on all of these things, and it's like you need time to process energies. That's the struggle with the feminine energy down here. Nobody understands that the feminine energy, what the feminine energy is doing is that the feminine energy is literally processing and transmuting all of the other energies that are taking place down here on this earth plane. But is anybody getting paid for that? Do you know what I mean? And then you have to take the time off, for example, right? That's why I was saying like the whole, like, let's say if you're in the financially freedom situation, right? Or whatever your financial situation is, and you're able to go into the energy, it is like you're living, in this high vibrational fantasy land, which is great, right? You're able to do that. But most people have to work. So it's like those energies get drained. They feel tired down here. They, some of them might develop certain things, right? because you're going contrary to your own energetic field. Like the ideal version for any Piscean energy, 12th house energy, Neptunian energy is the ability to be in your own energy, first of all, the ability to, let's say, have some sort of financial stream coming from somewhere, right? And you're constantly going to be transmuting and purging other energies is basically what that is, right? So it's just unfortunate because even like a Mars in Cancer, like they might come off lethargic to people, right? But it's not that they're lethargic. They're just picking up on so much that's going on around them, and like those things aren't being paid. Do you know what I mean? It's so unfortunate, but it's just the way that it is down here. So it's like when you have that energy in your chart, you're gonna have to learn how to manage your energy. You have to work harder to actually fit into the energetic field down here on this earth plane, basically is what that is. Thank you, Courtney. Yay, I'm so glad that that basically resonated with you guys. It depends. Hey, Beatrice, how are you guys doing? That's the thing. So like the benefit also of Mars and Pisces, like even Pisces and Neptune and 12th house is the third eye visualization, right? So you have a strong third eye, and I've noticed with Mars and Pisces, a lot of the time they, might end up like either, advertently or inadvertently, right? Manifesting a team. These energies work best in a team. Do you know what I mean? When you have an artist, for example, you have an artist who is the creative, and that person is the creative. And then the best case scenario for these people is to have someone doing the accounting, someone doing the marketing, someone doing the, advertising, whatever, right? That's the best case scenario, having this whole team, right? That's where the energy can flourish, but you need this team, right, energetically to work with you. So it's like, let's say you're starting off something or you're not in that situation yet, and just being realistic, right? That might not be everybody in the beginning. Well, in that particular case, you're gonna have to do everything for yourself, which then kind of brings you to maybe feel tired or drained or these types of things, right? So that's the thing with these energies. That's just how it is. It's just how it is down here. So it's just a matter of learning the energy within yourself and figuring out how can you work with it. And it depends, what is your goal? Do you know what I mean? Like everyone has different goals in life, right? Some people, let's say, aren't ambitious and they just want to chill and they just want to do whatever and then have their crown chakra time and go into their crown chakra, right? And that works for them, so it depends, right? It depends where you're trying to go, what are you trying to do, what is your situation. So it's going to vary from person to person, basically. I'm glad that that resonated. Good. You said Cancer men are toxic to you, and then you said you love them. That's so bad for you. I'm curious to know, maybe something in your synastry where you guys clash, perhaps. It depends. Like, it depends how in tune with their feminine energy are they. Because that's the thing, we're all energy at the end of the day. And that's something that people still don't understand. Do you know what I mean? Like people who are a little bit more spiritually inclined will understand that, right? But the everyday person does not understand that we are masculine and feminine energy, all of us, right? So you either have core masculine energy or you have core feminine energy. And that's why you have so many people out here, if they suppress their feminine energy within, they're out here doing the most, right? Because they haven't processed their emotions literally from childbirth. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just so unfortunate because if everybody was able to process their emotions, the world would be completely different, right? But it is what it is, right? We are where we are. You said Pisces rising is rare. Interesting. You said you always felt close to homeless people. Totally believe what I said. It seems as though these are also interchangeable: extreme wealth and extreme poverty. You said the wealthiest single person on earth is a Pisces. Interesting. Yeah, exactly. It's the strong vision. It's the strong visualization. It's a matter of taking your energy and working with it is basically what that is, okay? So knowing when you have like Neptunian aspects, Pisces aspects, 12th house aspects, knowing and understanding, you can be impatient, for example, okay? Also, you can go off into the crown chakra. You can daydream a lot. You can kind of completely forget what you were doing, right? And move on to the next thing, right? You need to know this about yourself, right? So if you're able to pull it in, hone it back in, right? Then you're manifesting left, right, and center because you have the strong visualization, which is important in manifesting. Because like Pisces, 12th house, Neptune, like this energy blurs, right? The reality and the fiction. And because it's blurred, right? That is how you are able to manifest. Like that's what they teach in manifestation. But what they don't also teach on top of that is that you have to put in the action along with the visualization is basically what that is, right? So it's a lot of manifesting potential. But at the same time, Pisces, let's say sun, or even Pisces energy anywhere, right? Even 12th house energy, they can unconsciously be looking to be led. So they might end up in situations with Virgo types of people, right? Or people who want to siphon your energy. Do you know what I mean? So these are just things to pay attention to, okay? Because if you have something you want to do for yourself, right, you're gonna have to work on these energies. Otherwise, there's gonna be someone in your vicinity, right, that's gonna latch onto you and use your energy to manifest for themselves. That's just how it is. You said your chart is mostly water. It is, especially these days. I find there's a lot of shadows, like a lot of collective shadows, just like at the surface right now. So people who have a lot of water in their charts, you're absorbing everything, whether you want to or not. You know what I mean? So you're gonna have to spend time going into nature, you know, doing things like maybe baths, or let's say just like cleansing things, like whatever it is, right? Whatever your thing is, going on walks, maybe whatever it is to cleanse the energy, because it's like, I don't know what's going on energetically, or maybe it's just the fact that it's Mercury retrograde right now, or just in general because we're going through like the collective, you know, ascension. You can look at it that way, I guess, although I try to stay away from those terms. But yes, we're going into the higher frequencies. People are being forced to heal, and they're being forced to clear, and it is an 8-year, and we're wrapping up the 8-year. Next year is going to be a 9-year. So it's like people's stuff, like everything that's like at the bottom is like coming to the surface. So people have a lot of unprocessed things. So people who are energetically sensitive are picking up on all of that, and they're absorbing all of that is basically what that is. Okay. So that's probably why you feel tired and drained. Okay. I'm going back up to see who I may have missed. Jupiter Pisces listens. You said, hey, how are you? And then you said, can Taurus in the 12th house be the reason for your inability to see your attractiveness? Could be, yeah. And how people perceive you subconsciously. Absolutely. Taurus in the 12th house, because Taurus usually is an attractive type of energy. Sure. Let's see. Can I break down Pluto and Scorpio in the 5th house? Okay. Pluto and Scorpio. So first of all, that is the millennials. Okay. Pluto and Scorpio is the millennials. So basically the millennials are clearing through a lot. Okay. It's just like a lot because Pluto is ruled by Scorpio. So now it's in its home in this generation. So they're clearing through anything that is chilling at the base of the spine. Manipulation, jealousy. It's interesting. A lot of these people who are, you know, dating coaches or talking about dating or on podcasts, a lot of them are millennials, right? And it's interesting if you listen to what they're all saying from both sides. Okay. If you really listen to what everybody is saying, all of their tactics and things that they're trying to do is rooted in manipulation, right? So they're exposing themselves, right? But at the same time, and them exposing themselves, they're doing the purge for the collective, right? So it's interesting to me because Scorpio looks for a mind, body, spirit connection, but within this generation, hookup culture got imposed on them energetically, okay? There's a lot of intimacy issues. There is the fear of that at the same time. There's also struggles with power and control. So all of these things are being purged within the generation. So Pluto, okay, purges it within the generation, okay? For the family line, for yourself on that soul level, for the collective as a whole, okay? And then for you as well, right? Energetically. So that's what Pluto is doing. So Pluto and Scorpio is clearing through a lot. The mother wound is a big one in this generation as well. Attachment styles, attachment issues, you know, let's say intuition as well, not listening to the intuition, all these things, okay? That's Pluto and Scorpio. They're clearing through a lot. It's a lot of generational clearance within Pluto and Scorpio. So that's Pluto and Scorpio. Now, Pluto and Scorpio, and it's in the 5th house. I'm curious to know if you have Scorpio occupying your 5th house overall, because Pluto in the 5th house is basically when it comes to relationships, you're not lighthearted, is basically what that is, okay? You take it very seriously. You could be possessive, you could be jealous, you could be looking for, again, that person, you know, where you have the mind, body, spirit connection with them, with Pluto in the 5th house. Because the 5th house is love, dating, and relationships, and it's fun. It's that fun house, right? It's also your creativity. So like, let's say you might, you know, hide, for example, your creative gifts, or you might want to be seen, but you do it kind of like in a hiding type of way. Like for Scorpio in the 5th house, or even Pluto in the 5th house, what I've noticed for these people is like, they might have the pull to be creative, but let's say they're going to be the types of pages where they don't show their face, or they're anonymous, or they have a, you know, different pen name or whatever it's called. Okay. That's that Scorpio in the 5th house or Pluto in the 5th house energy. So it's this, and I feel like part of the, you can look at it as karma or thing you're meant to transmute here is to actually be seen, is basically what that is, okay? With that Pluto in the 5th house energy. And then in the relationships, to transmute all of these lower vibrational energies, like the possessiveness, holding on for dear life. And the thing is, it's in your energetic field, right? So it's either you or you attract people like this to you, is really what that is. So that's kind of how it works. You said also something you notice about people who are Sagittarius, who are in their shadow sign of that energy. They're prone to jealousy, trying to one up others. You said you talk a lot of beep, and then you said, but that's the shadow. That's the thing. I find that Sagittarius, like, I feel like a lot of people don't talk about the shadow of Sagittarius. It's always Scorpio that everyone focuses on. But the thing is, Sag is the outward expression of Scorpio. Because if you look at it again, the Sag energy has a 12th house in Scorpio. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, they can really go even into crime. What I've noticed with them, they can be like trickster energies, like in the shadow. I'm talking about in the shadow, okay? There's a divine version, absolutely, which is, you know, again, you know, the philosopher and the higher minded person, and, you know, you creating belief systems. Like, that's the positive version, right? But it's like, nobody talks about the shadow of Sag, which is really interesting. They like go under the radar, but they can really be like con artists, for example, or they can be in the shadow, okay? They can really be, very manipulative energetically, okay? Because basically what's happening within Sag is a 12th house Scorpio, okay? That needs to be transmuted and cleared, okay? Is really what it is. So a lot of unconscious things are being expressed through shadow energy, or through the shadow of Sag is basically what it is, okay? You said, yeah, okay, I'm glad that it resonates. Yeah, and on top of that, they're mutable too, so they're going to switch up on you. They're going to say one thing in the morning. Like, Sag is a lot of fun. Like, when I would travel, I would meet a lot of Sag people because Sag loves to travel, and I love to travel too. So I would meet a lot of Sagittarius people when I would travel, but it's like, what I've noticed with them is like, they're in the moment types of people. Do you know what I mean? So when they're there and they're with you, because it's mutable, right? It's all fun, and they're a lot of fun. Like, they really are. But it's like trying to make a plan with them. Like, they're gonna make a plan with you in the morning, and then by the evening they're gonna be like somewhere else. You know what? You can't catch that energy, right? And that's just how the energy is. It just is what it is, right? That's just the nature of the energy, because it's mutable. It's here, there, and it's everywhere. So it's just this. You said you do want it to resonate deeply in relationships, and yes, hold on one second. You said you do have your creativity, and that's so hard. Yeah, I'm glad that resonated. That's that energy. It's the Pluto in the 5th house. Yeah, you said Sagittarius are really Scorpios in Vedic astrology. I know, and I was thinking about that the other day too with Vedic, because I was like, okay, so I'm thinking about this theory that I have, and I don't know, maybe other people have thought of this. There's so many people in the world, so I don't know if this is a thing, but what I was just explaining to you guys, if you look at the 12th house energy of the sign, right? And then I was thinking, and I was like, maybe that's why Vedic, because I'm still trying to come to the conclusion why both systems resonate to people, right? So then I was thinking in my head, and then I was like, okay, well, maybe the Vedic is actually trying to show the 12th house of the person, right? Which, like, the 12th house is the soul of the person, okay? Or the soul of the sign. You know what I mean? So the 12th house within the sign is actually the soul of the sign, and then it's how it's being expressed, right? So you have to look at that for all of the signs, what the 12th house of that sign is, right? So then I was thinking in my head, and I was like, maybe that's why Vedic resonates with people, because in the Vedic system, it's giving like the soul energy. Do you know what I mean? So I can see how both energies could resonate. But anyways, that's kind of where I've gotten to that energy. Okay, you're following, right? You said, can you even get real in relationships when you have Uranus and Neptune and Capricorn in the 7th house? You want a real, genuine one, but you have heard it's a tricky placement. Can you tell me what sign you have in your 7th house? Is it Capricorn that you have in your 7th? And can you tell me what sign you have in your 5th house? Pisces is like that too, Esperanza. I've noticed with them. Oh my goodness. Pisces, because they're mutable, it's really interesting to try to follow their train of thought, because so interesting. Like, for example, I was talking to a Pisces person. They were a Pisces moon, okay? And they said to me, they're like, okay, I don't want to talk about this topic, okay? And usually I just let people talk, okay? Like, on here I talk, but the thing is, like, my energy is Scorpio at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm Pluto dominant, so usually I'm letting other people talk and I'm just listening and observing, right? To me, everyone is just like a study, okay? So this person was a Pisces moon, and in the conversation, the person was like, okay, I don't want to talk about this topic or whatever. They didn't want to talk about it. I was like, okay. And then the person would like leave from that. They would start talking about something else, and then they would come back to it. And in my head, I was like, hold on. Like, you said you didn't, and it's just like them talking. You know, I'm just letting them talk, and I'm just listening, and I'm like, this is so fascinating to witness. Like, it's so fascinating to witness this mutable energy, because I saw them coming in and out. Like, they were coming in and out of this energy of just like, I do kind of feel like energetically what I was picking up on for that person was like that they kind of had maybe just like, okay, anyways, I'm not going to diagnose anybody, but you guys are going to have to read between the lines. But there was basically like two different streams of thought that were taking place, right? Within the conversation. They're going to say this, they're going to move on to this, they're going to be like, I don't want to talk about that. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then they start talking about this thing, and then they go back to this, and I'm just like confused. I'm like trying to follow. I'm like, what is happening here, right? But it's a form of fragmentation also. I think that was taking place with that specific person. I do have several Scorpio placements. I have a Scorpio stellium. Okay, so I have a Scorpio stellium. I have a Libra stellium taking place. I'm Pluto dominant, and then I'm also Saturn dominant. And then I also have Uranus aspecting pretty much everything in my chart. So that's basically what it is. Oh my goodness, you guys are so funny in the chat. Okay, so you said Capricorn in the 7th house, and then you said Uranus and Neptune and Pluto with Scorpio is tricky. Yeah, I was going to ask you what else was going on in there, because I was kind of picking up on that energy for you. I was kind of getting, just like as I was speaking on the Pluto in the 5th house, I was getting Neptunian energy for you, okay? So I'm curious to know, like, do you have any Venus Neptune aspects? But it doesn't really matter, because that 7th house Uranus and Neptune is very similar. It's like, okay, the struggle with that energy is like the Uranus is unconventional and the Uranus energy wants space. And then a Neptune in the seventh house dreams of relationships, okay? So for Neptune in the seventh, their relationships are better in their mind. So it's like for these relationships to work. And then the struggle with that, on top of all of that, having Pluto in the fifth house is like you're also going to be possessive, and then you're also going to want the person around all the time. So it's like a huge push-pull with all that energy in there, where it's like you want your individuality because of Uranus in the seventh, and then for Neptune in the seventh to thrive, they need the space, right? So it's like Uranus and Neptune in the seventh could work in relationships where it's like you have space, you don't live together, you see this person once a week. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like it's not getting overly enmeshed. But then it's like the Pluto in the fifth, like that's all the shadows coming to the surface, which then is going to basically destruct the illusion that Neptune creates. So yes, I can see all of that being a struggle in terms of dating, because also Pluto in the fifth pulls energetically people in, where it's like you kind of get bound in this energetic vortex while the shadow work is taking place. And then Neptune in the seventh isn't going to like that, okay? Because Neptune in the seventh house does well when there's space in the relationship for you to dream about the person, or to only hang out with the person when you're both in a good mood and you're in the high vibe, right? But it's like if you're with the person and you're with them a lot, the Pluto in the fifth house is going to kick in that case, and all the shadows are going to come to the surface. So I can see it being a struggle, but it's like at the same time, if you transmute a lot of the lower vibrational scorpionic energies and you're able to master trust in the relationship, which could be a struggle, okay, for Pluto in the fifth, okay? But if you're able to master that, then you can kind of have this space, right? But in the lower versions of Pluto in the fifth or Scorpio in the fifth, right? Even Scorpio in the seventh, even Venus in Scorpio, like these energies really want to hold on to the person, like to the point where it's like, again, you want to know where they are at all times. What are they doing? Who are they with? Like these types of things. Like that's shadow Scorpio, right? And the thing is, at the same time, you could attract people like this to you. So it depends. It depends how evolved the energy is. At what point of your journey are you on? Because if it's evolved, okay, and it's in the divine version, well, in that case, then you're able to have a deep connection, okay, but with space, and you have established that trust, right? But the thing is, Scorpio struggles with trust. Do you know what I mean? So it'll take time. It'll be like a specific person that will be able to understand maybe this aspect of you. Oh, I love you too. Yay, thank you. What are your energies, Sue? You said, how would Scorpio, one second here. He said, how is Scorpio midheaven in between Sun 4 degrees away from Mercury 6 degrees? Hold on a second. You said, how is Scorpio midheaven in between Sun 4 degrees away and Mercury 6 degrees? So you guess it's conjuncting both. I have to look at that and see if it's conjuncting. He said, can I explain progressions? Do we disregard placements before you have progressed? No, I don't disregard anything. I look at everything. Okay, give me 1 second, you guys. Okay, I'm back. No, I don't disregard. Basically, with the secondary progressions, the way that it works is like you have the core chart, and that is who you are at the time of birth, basically, okay, with the energies in your natal chart. And then the progressed version is how you have grown and evolved through time, okay? So I wouldn't disregard. You would just look at the secondary progressions as like an added energy on top of the original natal chart, okay? So you want to see how is the energy operating in the progressed version, okay, is basically what that is. Because the thing is, if you have certain shadow traits in the original natal chart that you haven't worked through, it's still going to come through in the progressed version of the chart, okay? So you look at both, okay? Let's say you're trying to bring something through. Let's say you're trying to work with the energies. You can work with the original natal chart, and you can work with the progressed version of the natal chart as well. So that's kind of how the secondary progressions work. It's an added energy on top. It's how you have grown and evolved through time. If you have transmuted certain things, then you kind of go into the progressed version of that energy, okay? But like if you haven't worked on certain things, it's still going to come up. Do you know what I mean? So it's up to you. Oh, nice. You have a Scorpio stellium, Libra moon. Nice. You said midheaven is in Scorpio conjunct Sun. You said midheaven is in Scorpio conjunct Sun and Mercury. Okay, so in terms of work, okay, what I've noticed with midheaven in Scorpio, for them, it doesn't really matter what they do. Their end goal is power and control, basically, okay? So it doesn't matter what they do. You want to look at the rest of the energies in your chart to see where are you going, okay? Because for them, it's like any sort of situation or position that allows them power and control, so money and wealth and status, okay? Midheaven in Scorpio. Now, in conjuncting the Sun and conjuncting the Mercury, maybe in terms of your career, is going to deal with speaking, for example, okay? Let's say like your name is Sue Loves Astrology, maybe it's going to be like an astrology thing, right? It could be this, because then you could be using your throat chakra, you could be shining in that area, something like this, right? So it's this. I find though Scorpio energy is kind of like an added energy, right? It's like a supplementary energy. So it's looking for power and control. I find, yes, you could be into all the Scorpio types of things, of course, like sex, death, rebirth, joint finances, taxes, and the occult. But the thing is, the end goal for Scorpio in heaven is power and control. That's where they're going, right? So they're trying to make these strategic moves to get there, is really, really what that is. So it's going to be a matter of seeing what else is going on in the chart to see how that's going to manifest, for example. Because you'll see maybe some politicians have midheaven in Scorpio, for example. If you look at their charts, you'll see a lot of people in the public eye, okay, or in these public like roles have Scorpio somewhere in their chart, okay, because it's power and control is basically what that is, and money, because Scorpio bounces off of Taurus, right? They want the nice things. It's just a matter of how they go about getting them. I was going to ask you, see, I was picking up on that. You said you have Venus trine Neptune. I was literally picking up on that aspect. Venus trine Neptune and Venus trine Uranus. So that's even more of that energy added on there. You said that's you, constant struggle, but in a relationship. Okay, good. You're in a relationship. That's awesome. You're having trouble trusting. Yeah, that's the thing. That's that Scorpio energy. That's the thing, because that energy wants its individuality. It wants to have its space. The trines are going to give you a little bit like softer of an energy. Do you know what I mean? Like it's kind of just like, you know, the side character, not the main character kind of thing. But in combination with everything else that's happening in terms of the love nature for you and the relationships, it's like having the Uranus in there, like Uranus is going to want to have excitement and fun, right? And sometimes if it goes into the shadow, especially because you have Scorpio influence in your relationship area as well, it could really go into chaos, that energy. And it can really go into dramas, and it can really go into rocking the boat. Is basically what that is, because Uranus needs to change, right? So if you're able to keep things fun and entertaining and light in the relationship with that Uranus, like, you know, having the change, maybe you guys go on trips somewhere, maybe you guys switch up your routine, you know what I mean? It could work, you know, that energy. But otherwise, like if it's in the shadow and it goes to the shadow, that energy, like the Uranus aspect, even Uranus in the 7th house, is going to be looking for new, is basically what that is, okay? So keeping things new and exciting within the relationship. Synastry charts with Venus conjunct ascendant and Venus opposite Pluto. So you have Venus conjunct ascendant. That's usually a lot of attraction. Even the Venus opposing Pluto. Venus conjunct ascendant, that basically means that like for the Venus person, the ascendant person is their exact type, okay? When you have Venus conjunct ascendant or the Venus falls into the partner's first house, okay? That means you're literally their exact like physical type, okay? Sometimes in those relationships, the ascendant person might feel like, okay, they are, you know, just like, it might feel superficial to them. For example, if there's nothing else going on in the chart, right? They might question the relationship and be like, is this person only into me because of the physical aspect, the Venus conjunct ascendant, okay? So it could be this, but regardless, you are their exact physical type, okay? The Venus conjunct ascendant, or maybe they are your exact physical type, depends who's Venus and depends who's the ascendant. And then Venus opposing Pluto, there's going to be a lot of push-pull in this dynamic, okay? A lot of, I love you, I hate you, I want to be with you, I need a break from you, I can't, you know, take a break from you. That's Venus opposing Pluto. It depends how involved are the two people and are you used to the energies, because Pluto always is going to bring things to the surface. That's Pluto anywhere, any sort of Plutonian aspect. Now, you know, in synastry, typically they say the Pluto person doesn't feel it, like the external planet person doesn't feel it, the internal planet does feel it, but it depends, right? Because energy is energy at the end of the day. So if you're super involved with this person, you could both feel it, right? This like energy. You could also bring through a lot of money, let's say with Venus opposing Pluto in this dynamic, right? It could be this, it could be this. So it could be, it depends what else is going on in the natal charts, because Pluto can also bring through jealousy and manipulation, control, holding on to the person for dear life, not wanting to let them go, you know, all these things, having a hard time leaving this dynamic, right? So that's Pluto. It's usually, once you're in it, because the thing is, okay, for all of you to understand, if you are able to tap into energy and if you're able to feel it, Pluto usually feels like a vortex, okay? That's what it feels like, especially if it's shadow Pluto, it's pulling you in. It's kind of calling you. It's like, hey, it seems fun over here. Now, some people might think of this as a magnetic connection. Some people might think of this, you know, as like super sexually attractive dynamic, but sometimes it's a vortex that's pulling you in energetically, and it depends how evolved are the two people. If you get into that vortex, a lot of the time it's hard to break free from that vortex if you are involved in it. So it's important to assess early on, if you're feeling that energy, where is the other person at, okay? Are they evolved? Are they willing to work on themselves, or are they just going to project onto you? Because that's where the Plutonian situations can get toxic, right? If the person, the other person, or even you, right? Depends. If the people aren't willing to work on themselves, right? And they're just projecting on the other person, because the sexual energy is present. If the sexual energy is present, it's bringing everything to the surface, right? Not to mention like just the energy being present on its own. If you're actually involved physically with the person, that's just like everything like times 500, okay? Everything's coming to the surface, okay? Whatever's chilling at the bottom of that spine energetically, right? And the root chakra and the sacral is going to come to the surface to be looked at and assessed, right? But it's like, regardless, if the sexual energy is present, it's still coming up, right? So it doesn't matter really what's going on, whether you are actually involved or engaging with them physically or not, the energy is present. If you are in that vortex, it's kind of like until it gets cleared energetically, you're kind of pulled in, right? Until somebody breaks it energetically, right? That's how Plutonian energy basically is how it works. You said, what about Pluto in Libra in the 6th house? Interesting with Pluto in the 6th house, because sometimes these people can have affairs at work or like secret lovers at work, or you know, you have like a secret lover at work and you guys go off into like the secret meeting room and you get involved. Pluto in the 6th house. Again, I have to speak between the lines sometimes, so you're gonna have to read between the lines. That's Pluto in the 6th house. It could also be like, it could also be power struggles at work, for example, drama at work. You'll see these people. Sometimes they go off and want to work for themselves, for example. Pluto in the 6th house. Pluto in Libra is your whole generation, okay? So you're Gen X, karmically or like energetically, right? Astrologically, you fall under Gen X with Pluto and Libra. So you guys are clearing anything to do with relationships, you know, perceptions of relationships. What is a relationship? You know, it is very much like the generation is very friendly, you know, amongst each other. They always do things in groups, what I've noticed, right? They have a lot of friends overall. Maybe they started changing the collective's perception around relationships. What is a relationship? These types of things, okay? You said, yes, on Earth right now there is, you said, is there any substance that is transmuted from toxicity to usefulness? I'm not sure. Thank you. I'm so glad that that resonated. Is it normal to have Sun, Mars, Saturn on the midheaven? I mean, honestly, there are so many. I wish I screenshotted it out. But then again, you never know with the internet if that was real or not real, right? But I saw a post once, and this was a few years ago now, where it said the likelihood of having the same chart as somebody else is very, very slim. That's how many like different combinations there are. So when you're asking, is it normal to have Sun, Mars, Saturn to the midheaven or like on the midheaven? I mean, that's the thing. It's hard to say. Like, I don't look at anything as like normal or not normal. Do you know what I mean? It's just the chart. It just is what it is, right? So all of that aspecting your midheaven, you know, it's nice. Like, here's the thing. I know people hear Saturn and they might think that it's intense, but Saturn is discipline, and Saturn is going to help you create something down here, right? Because it is a Saturnian plane, in my opinion, okay? It's very Saturnian down here. So it's all about discipline, hard work, and effort. So having that aspecting your midheaven, well, in that case, you're going to have a lot of discipline when it comes to your work, right? Mars is going to be ambitious and Sun is going to want to shine in that area. A lot of your ego is going to be connected to your work or to your career. So to me, in terms of being, you know, a goal getter or a goal setter or an ambitious person, if you are, that energy is nice, right? Because it's going to help you achieve your goals, okay? Eyes on the prize. Thank you. You guys are kind. Let me just go up here and see if I miss anybody. I'm glad that that resonated. Thank you, JW. I'm glad that you caught the live too. Thank you, Michaela. You said you have Sun, 0 degrees in Scorpio. Can it progress all the way through Scorpio into Sag? Yeah, usually the Sun progresses. So the Sun progresses approximately every 30 years. So the way it's calculated is like the Sun progressions are calculated based on the Sun sign changing approximately every 30 to 31 days, right? That's how it's calculated. So in your lifetime, if you live up until the age of 80, and it depends at what degree your Sun sign started, you're going to go through 3 different Sun signs, okay, in the secondary progressions. So you can go out of Scorpio into Sag, and then you go out of Sag into Capricorn, okay? And that could be what it is, right? Maybe you'll even have 4. Let's say it's later degree Scorpio. You go out of Scorpio into Sag, Sag into Capricorn, Capricorn into Aquarius, right? Depends how long you're living. But it's approximately every 30 years for the Sun sign, okay, to progress. The Moon is going to be approximately every 2 years. It progresses because every 2 days, the Moon is changing signs. So that's how they calculate the secondary progressions. Thank you for the likes. Yes, make sure you guys like the video. You guys can double tap on the screen, obviously, if you so choose to do so, to like the video. You said, how can you deal with Pluto conjunct the Moon in Scorpio? That's intense in the 6th house. You notice you attract volatile people at work. Yes, that's exactly that energy in the 6th house. Just minding your own business, and it gives you anxiety. And it gives you anxiety because it's daily. Yeah, you'll see that with the 6th house for the other individual too. The 6th house Pluto, these people a lot of the time kind of leave and they just like have their own job or they have their own work. you know, or you work for yourself, okay? Because you'll just like, there's nothing you can do. That's the thing with the astrological aspect of things. Like sometimes it's just the code in your chart and there's nothing you can do to change that because the energy is being played out. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's in your energy, it's in your energetic field. So it's like, it'll always end up playing out. It's kind of like an energy, almost you can kind of look at it as something on loop, right? We can try to transcend the energy. Like you can try to dodge those people. Like let's say you're at work and you're seeing the energy like come up, maybe, you know, doing something to try to avoid it. But I find that even if you're trying to avoid, it's still going to come up because it's like part of the karma for the Pluto in the 6th. You can look at it as karma or what you're meant to do or master or whatever, or like part of your purpose, whatever way, shape, or form you want to look at it, right? Is to trigger people at work, okay? Like that's like one of the purposes. You can look at it that way, right? Is to bring people's shadows to the surface. So there's nothing really that you can do because it's in your chart. It's in the energetic code. You know what I mean? So you'll see sometimes these people, when they're kind of done with all of that, you might see them working for themselves, basically, okay? Something where they don't have to deal with colleagues and employees and these types of things, okay? That's that energy. Pluto in the 5th house. Cece, I went over that a little bit earlier in this video. The Pluto in the 5th house in a nutshell, okay? You can rewatch. It's maybe like 10 minutes ago now, but Pluto in the 5th house in a nutshell, you're possessive when it comes to relationships, okay? So the 5th house is the lighthearted house. It's you trying to have fun and, you know, it's love, dating, and relationships and maybe being lighthearted when it comes to dating. Pluto going through here, you're not lighthearted when it comes to dating, basically, okay? You're very serious when it comes to dating. You're looking for a mind, body, spirit connection, okay? So you kind of have that aspect to you. So it's interesting that if this is your chart, maybe the other person's chart, right? Because you were asking about the synastry, you could have that aspect to you that is seeking deep relationships. So you will see Pluto aspects in another person's synastry, right? Because you're looking for that depth, for example, you know what I mean? So it just depends, like at what point of the journey are you on? Because in the shadow, you go into possessiveness, controlling, manipulation, obsession with that energy, or people can be like this towards you, okay? People that you date could become obsessed with you without you really doing anything, okay? So it's this, but you're looking for depth when it comes to relationships with Pluto in the 5th house. You can't be lighthearted, basically, okay? It's not an energy where it's like, oh, let me date this person and that person doesn't work, because that energy merges, okay? And because it's merging, it's not going to take anything lighthearted. It just is what it is at the end of the day. I'm glad that resonated for you for the 6th house. You said North Node in Sag in the 10th house, South Node in Gemini in the 4th house, Placidus, Midheaven in Scorpio, Mars conjunct North Node, and Pluto is 8 degrees away from North Node, both. You said both midheaven rulers near the North Node. Once again, basically whatever's happening in the 4th house is pulling you out of, because like the thing is your South Node and Gemini in the 4th house, a lot of your family is from a previous lifetime, okay? So there's probably things to clear with them. I'm actually even picking up on just like things to do with communication and like not being honest, or just like actually part of it could be, okay, this is just psychically what's coming through for you. Part of it is like you speaking your truth basically in this lifetime, okay, to activate your North Node where you're trying to go, which is something to do with like teaching, being a mentor, or maybe like something to do with like, because it's Sag, right? So it could be teaching, it could be entrepreneurship, it could be freedom, it could be spiritual teaching. It's in the 10th house, so you're climbing, right, to those higher heights. The thing is the 4th house, like basically the karma with the home, you can look at it this way, has to be resolved first, because these people, like the home, okay, the 4th house, are all individuals that are from a previous lifetime, okay? And they're kind of pulling you out of the overall life purpose. So kind of what I'm seeing is like you maybe evading or like not actually speaking your full truth of what you want to do or something of this sort in this lifetime, okay? And that's pulling you out of your North Node, it's pulling you into the South Node. But you don't want to be focused on the South Node because that's probably what happened in a previous lifetime already, okay? Something to do with compromising what you wanted to do for the home. But you're not meant to focus on that, you're meant to focus on the North Node, okay? That's kind of what I'm getting for you. Yeah, I'm glad that resonated. You said so revelatory, Pluto in the 6th house and Scorpio among other energies. No wonder so many people triggered at work. Exactly. Yeah, that's Pluto in the 6th house, because you can look at it as like, it's so interesting. I heard somebody else say this and I love it. They were basically saying, like, I never put this into words. I would just like speak on it as like you coming through someone's life to shake things up for them, right? When you're Plutonian. So, you know, people either have these types of relationships, but somebody else, what they said and what I loved, okay, they basically said that people can be like transits. And I love that, right? So when you look at it like this, right, having Pluto in the 6th house, you are transiting, right, through this person or people's life to bring something to the surface for them. Is basically what that is, okay? Usually with Scorpio, energy is something where they're not showing up authentically, or where they're in denial, or where they're lying to themselves, or where they're in deception, or whatever, okay? So it's in the 6th house, so it's at work is basically what that is, okay? Where all of this is coming to the surface for you. And unfortunately, this energy gets scapegoated, okay? Because it's like you're the one that's bringing everything to the surface for other people, okay? In this case, because it's the 6th house, it's at work, okay? And then they're gonna blame you for certain things, right? So you might even notice like people trying to throw you under the bus or whatever it is, but it's like that's part of your role there, okay? So it's kind of like a chicken and the egg type of situation, right? So you'll see a lot of the time when this energy doesn't want to engage with that anymore, okay, they leave and they probably do their own thing and they work for themselves. You're welcome. Oh my gosh, no way. I'm so glad that that resonated. You said you've had to let them go in order to move on with the North Node. Yeah, I'm glad that that resonated. Well, there you go. Confirmation, okay? Hey, Lenny, you said, hey, transiting Pluto will soon be opposite your natal Venus in the 2nd house. You said in the 2nd degree of Leo, what to expect. You're single. Probably a lot of shadow work in your relationships are going to come up with that transit. You might even have, again, anything that is